last customer. I mean, there's an obvious, I'll give two answers to this. The real obvious answer is adversarial nations. Because if I sell to China today, I'll actually go to prison. So that's actually, and by the way, this drives why we can't sell our things to everybody. People say, well, why don't you just sell Eagle Eye to everybody? Why don't you sell to the military? I just want to buy it myself. You know, I'm a hunter or a sportsman, or or I want to use it for paintball. Why can't I buy it? The point I have to make to them is that I understand that, but anything that I sell to civilians will end up in the hands of adversaries to the United States and our allies around the world. If you look at Russian special forces, the best guys, they're not wearing Russian gear. They're wearing all American gear that they've obtained through the black market. And once you sell to civilians, you inherently will eventually, accidentally, sell to a civilian who is treasonous and who will sell to foreign nations, maybe unknowingly, sometimes knowingly. People go to prison for this all the time. And sometimes even members of our armed forces have been caught selling things that fell off the back of a truck to foreign adversaries. Someone was just arrested for selling a bunch of high-end equipment to China, a Chinese military camp. So that, the last customer is probably foreign adversaries. And I'd say also, I think we're not going to sell directly to consumers because we need to focus. When you run a business, you have to focus on the use case. You have to do it maniacally. You have to stay focused. And I don't have the focus to be able to build something that is the right thing for the Army and the right thing for consumers. The best I can hope for is that the technology that I develop will funnel back through partners like Meta and Qualcomm and go into things that do go to consumers. I will make one more point, which I actually hope that someday I do get to sell to China. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I want to remind people that the state of the world as it is today is not fixed. And even the bad, negative parts of today, we shouldn't want them to continue. I mean, people say, Palmer, how could you ever say that you would be willing to sell to China? My point is, it should be up to the United States government, it should be up to our democratic process, it shouldn't be up to me. But more importantly, there was a time where I would have gone to prison for selling things to Japan. There was a time where I would have gone to prison selling things to Germany. We shouldn't be entrenching our world and saying, I swear on my life, I will never sell to those Chinese. We should be saying, I'm not going to sell to the Chinese Communist Party as it rules China today as an adversary to the United States that is saying it is going to use force to take over democratic nations that we're allied with. But if that were to change, and I hope that it does, then I hope for a world where we do work with China to have better global stability. I think a world where China reforms, they could be part of a global coalition against terrorism, against piracy, against rogue state actions. I think the same of Iran, right? I hope that eventually there's a change in how Iran works. I'm not saying I'm calling for an Iranian revolution, but there are lots of ways that can come to pass. And you're even seeing this in countries that have been a little iffy. There was a period of time where we thought Australia was going to fall into the Sinosphere. They're right next to China. China was their largest trade partner. And how has that gone? Australia's redoubled its commitment to America, to NATO members, to the West in general. They have now signed a deal where we're sharing nuclear submarines with Australia and the United Kingdom, the United States, and trilateral agreement with AUKUS. So I guess the last customer today is going to be very different than the last customer will be, I hope, 50 or 100 years from now. I hope we can get to a world where there's nobody who's truly beyond the pale. I don't think we'll get there, but you gotta have a utopian mission at these things. You gotta close on a utopian note.